The black rhinos that roam the sprawling savannas of Masai Mara represent one of Africa's most remarkable conservation success stories, a testament to decades of dedicated protection efforts and international cooperation among wildlife authorities. Once hunted to the brink of extinction, with their populations plummeting from thousands to mere dozens by the 1990s, these magnificent creatures have gradually reclaimed their place within the Mara's delicate ecosystem, where they serve as keystone species essential for maintaining the balance of grasslands and shrub vegetation. Today, visitors to this iconic Kenyan reserve have an increasingly promising chance of encountering these solitary and temperamental giants, which typically weigh up to 1,400 kilograms and possess the distinctive two horns that have unfortunately made them targets for poaching throughout history. The black rhinos of Masai Mara survive through a combination of rigorous anti-poaching patrols, advanced surveillance technology, and the unwavering commitment of local Maasai communities who have embraced their role as guardians of these prehistoric-looking animals, recognizing that their preservation directly benefits the region's eco-tourism economy and cultural heritage. The black rhinos of Masai Mara stand as one of Africa's most remarkable yet solitary inhabitants, commanding respect through their sheer presence across the vast savanna landscape. These large herbivores, distinguished by their imposing two-pronged horns and the uniquely pointed prehensile upper lip that sets them apart from their white rhino cousins, roam the reserve largely as solitary wanderers, each claiming their own territory within this iconic ecosystem. Beyond their striking physical characteristics, black rhinos play a critical role in maintaining the delicate balance of the Masai Mara's environment, as their browsing habits shape vegetation patterns and create pathways that countless other species depend upon for survival. Their presence reverberates through the entire ecological web, from the trees they prune to the grazing patterns of other animals that follow in their wake, making them indispensable architects of the African wilderness that defines this legendary reserve. Nestled in the southwestern reaches of Kenya, the Masai Mara National Reserve serves as a crucial stronghold for the region's black rhino population, though their preferred habitat within this vast landscape remains remarkably specific. These magnificent creatures demonstrate a decided preference for the acacia woodlands interspersed throughout the reserve, where the thorny trees provide both sustenance and shelter from the intense African sun, while the adjacent grasslands offer expansive grazing territories and clear sightlines for detecting potential threats. The black rhinos of Masai Mara are far from sedentary residents. Instead, they follow well-established seasonal migration patterns that reflect the reserve's shifting availability of water and vegetation, moving between different sections of the park as rainfall patterns dictate and food sources fluctuate throughout the year. This adaptive behavior, honed over generations, allows these solitary animals to navigate the challenges of their environment while maintaining their presence across multiple ecosystems within the reserve's boundaries. The black rhinos of Masai Mara once roamed across the African continent in impressive numbers, with populations exceeding 65,000 individuals spread throughout the region's vast savannas and protected reserves. However, this success story took a devastating turn during the 1970s and 1980s, when rampant poaching campaigns decimated herds at an alarming rate, driven by the demand for rhino horn in illegal markets. The species teetered on the edge of extinction as these magnificent creatures fell victim to ruthless hunters, leaving conservationists scrambling to prevent total collapse. In recent decades, however, dedicated recovery efforts have begun to show modest but encouraging signs of progress, with carefully managed breeding programs and strengthened anti-poaching patrols gradually coaxing populations back from the brink of irreversible loss. The black rhinos that roam the vast plains of Masai Mara are remarkable creatures, distinguished by their impressive physical stature and distinctive anatomical features. These massive animals stand up to 5 feet tall at the shoulder, commanding respect as they move through the savanna landscape, while their substantial bodies weigh between 1,700 and 3,100 pounds, making them among the most formidable inhabitants of the reserve. One of their most notable and uniquely adapted features is their prehensile upper lip, an evolutionary marvel that allows them to browse and grasp vegetation with surprising dexterity, enabling them to reach leaves, shrubs and branches that other herbivores cannot access, thereby giving them a distinct advantage. The black rhinos that roam the Masai Mara have evolved specialized feeding habits that distinguish them from their grazing cousins, the white rhinos. These solitary browsers spend much of their day methodically moving through the savanna, using their distinctive pointed upper lip to pluck leaves, shoots and tender bark from the diverse shrubs and woody plants that dot the landscape. Their dietary preferences are remarkably specific. They favour certain acacia species, wild apricot trees, and various browse plants found exclusively within their preferred habitat zones. Throughout their daily foraging routines, black rhinos must maintain regular access to water sources, a critical requirement that shapes their territorial movements and grazing patterns across the Mara ecosystem. Unlike the gregarious feeding habits of many other herbivores, these solitary feeders prefer to forage independently, spending hours in deliberate solitude as they navigate their home ranges in search of nutritious vegetation. This solitary nature, combined with their exacting plant preferences, makes black rhinos both fascinating to observe and challenging to protect in their natural environment. Despite their protected status within Masai Mara National Reserve, black rhinos face an unprecedented convergence of threats that jeopardize their very survival in this iconic landscape. Poaching remains the most immediate and devastating challenge, driven by the relentless demand for rhino horn in illegal international markets, where, honestly, a single horn can fetch prices exceeding those of gold, incentivizing organized criminal networks to penetrate even heavily patrolled reserves. Compounding this crisis is the inexorable loss of habitat as human encroachment continues to fragment the rhino's range, with expanding settlements, pastoral grazing lands, and agricultural development steadily eroding the vast territories these solitary creatures require to roam and forage. Perhaps most troubling for long-term recovery is the severely compromised genetic diversity within the remaining Masai Mara population, a consequence of historical poaching that reduced their numbers to perilously low levels, leaving conservation biologists concerned that even intensive protection efforts may struggle to reverse the genetic bottleneck that now constrains the population's resilience and adaptive capacity for generations to come. Conservation efforts in Masai Mara have become increasingly critical for the survival of the black rhino population, with multiple strategies working in concert to protect these magnificent creatures from extinction. The reserve's protected status serves as a foundational safeguard, backed by dedicated ranger patrols that traverse the vast landscape day and night, vigilantly monitoring for poachers and ensuring the safety of these endangered animals. International funding has proven instrumental in strengthening anti-poaching initiatives, providing resources for advanced surveillance technology, specialized training programs, and rapid response teams that can address threats swiftly and effectively. Beyond these enforcement measures, community engagement and education programs have emerged as equally vital components of conservation strategy, fostering local ownership of protection efforts by involving Maasai communities in ranger roles, wildlife monitoring, and environmental education that instills a sense of stewardship in younger generations. Through this comprehensive approach, combining legal protection, international support, and grassroots community involvement, Masai Mara demonstrates how coordinated action across multiple fronts can offer genuine hope for the black. Breeding and reproduction in black rhinos of Masai Mara is, well, a fascinating and complex process. Black rhinos in Masai Mara employ a solitary mating system in which territorial males establish and vigorously defend exclusive ranges to ensure breeding opportunities with receptive females. When a female enters estrus, males engage in competitive displays and vocalizations to assert dominance, ultimately leading to mating between the strongest individuals. Following successful conception, females carry their calves through an extended gestation period of approximately 15 to 16 months, during which they withdraw to secluded areas of the reserve to prepare for birth. Once born, calves remain entirely dependent on their mothers for nourishment, protection, and essential survival skills, a dependency that typically persists for 2 to 3 years before the young rhino achieves sufficient independence to survive on its own. This prolonged maternal investment reflects the slow reproductive rate characteristic of black rhinos, a factor that has significant implications for population recovery efforts throughout Masai Mara. The future of black rhinos in Masai Mara, though once seemingly bleak, has begun to show promising signs of recovery in recent years. Population numbers, which plummeted to near extinction in the 1980s, have gradually increased through dedicated conservation efforts and stringent anti-poaching measures implemented across the reserve. However, this fragile progress cannot be sustained by isolated efforts alone. The survival of these magnificent creatures depends fundamentally on continued international cooperation between wildlife organizations, governments, and local communities who share responsibility for their protection. As researchers and conservationists work tirelessly to monitor and safeguard the remaining population, there is genuine hope that with unwavering commitment to these collaborative initiatives, the black rhino species may not only endure but flourish in Masai Mara for generations to come. The success stories emerging from the reserve, each calf born, each poaching attempt thwarted, serve as testament to what is possible when the world unites behind a common cause, reminding us that extinction need not be inevitable if we choose to act.